You're listening to Binjang 91.5 and it's time for Tech Talk with Mathew Dickerson. I'm your host, Tony Graham. Good morning, Mathew.
Yeah, good morning, Tony. Look, unfortunately not in the studio today, not sitting there across the desk from you looking at you, but COVID-19 has changed a whole range of ways that we're all working at the moment, and many people are working remotely, so it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it has its advantages too, I have to say.
Well, not looking at me, is that what you're saying?
I wasn't exactly saying that, no, Mathew. But anyway, weighing straight in, it's interesting that police are using drones, imagine this, to yell at people for being outside, and that's happening, is it?
Well, it is, and one of the things that's really interesting with COVID-19 is that it's putting a range of people at the front line at risk. So you can imagine health workers, police forces, ambulance workers, they're all being exposed to COVID-19 in doing their normal job, but we want them out there on the front line to try and reduce the impact of COVID-19. But the police have come up with some innovative ways to try and deal with the issue, and one of them is when you've got people walking around the streets not exercising caution with their social distancing, then having police go and talk to people obviously is an issue, but going through and using a drone to tell people that they're too close together or they shouldn't be outside is one of the ways that this is being combated to keep those frontline workers safe while still actually exercising their duties. You can actually have a two-way conversation with the drone. So the drone can say, Tony, what are you doing outside? Now you might have a valid reason to be outside. You might be going to do something that's of vital importance. So you can tell the drone that, and that information goes back to the police that are manning the drone, and they can say, go on about your day, Tony, thanks for helping. Or they can say, Tony, we don't accept that excuse, go back inside.
Well, the wonders of technology. There's always a use for something. Interesting, though.
Absolutely.
Interesting how the Chinese, they've become the major manufacturers of drones, and over there in the US, they're concerned about their cybersecurity with these drones, aren't they?
Yeah, that's exactly right, and certainly there's concerns about, for example, Huawei. We've seen concerns around their componentry around the world. So there are some concerns from various governments about Chinese components and what that might lead to. At the moment, I think people are just trying to use the technology that's out there, and I think, unfortunately, some of those security issues are going to be ignored while we deal with the imminent threat of COVID-19. So there's some interesting issues there, but obviously there's always a concern around China and what they might be doing and what they might be doing in terms of spying with technology.
Yeah. Now over to the NBN. I don't know who, but obviously there's a bit of a push on prices, reducing the prices, because there's the potential for 11 million premises to connect to the NBN, and given the current circumstances, that would probably be very helpful too.
Yeah, that's right. And the government's boasting now that they've had, or there is now access to 11 million different premises to connect to the NBN. Not all 11 million have connected. We're talking about maybe more like 6 or 7 million have connected. And there are several reasons for that. Obviously, some people don't want access to the internet. They're quite happy not to have that. But the phone line, even if you have a home phone line, you still need to be connected to the NBN if it's gone to the point where your copper has been disconnected. But the other part of it is that if you're a low volume user of data, then it's often cheaper for you to be connected with mobile broadband than it is for you to use the NBN. And obviously this isn't a great situation, especially for a government that's invested just a couple of dollars in building the NBN. So retail service providers have been calling on the NBN to reduce the wholesale price, in particular at the moment when COVID-19 is a major issue. We need more people connected. So if they could reduce that wholesale price, then that would obviously give us the ability for those retail service providers to introduce lower plans. And they're trying to talk about a plan of a $30 plan for a low volume user, which would be absolutely fantastic, because most of the service providers out there at the moment are talking more like $70 or $80 for the lowest plan. And for some people that don't use the internet that much, that is just way too much for them to pay. So stay tuned to this space. I hope there'll be some movement in this and there'll be more people connected.
Yes. Now, do you have that big green paddy hat from last week that you wore on St. Patrick's Day? Because I think for this next question, perhaps you should put that on, and I'll call you Malcolm, actually, because it might protect you a bit. So this question is, how long will the toilet paper supply last? And I believe, Malcolm, you've calculated this.
Well, it is funny. People often ask me different questions, and one of my standard responses is, there's an app for that. And that seems to be where we are in society at the moment. There are so many apps available. We're talking millions of apps available, that there are so many apps available that just about anything you can think of has already been worked out. And one of those questions that people have asked, sometimes in jest, is people have hoarded all this toilet paper at home. How long will that toilet paper last before they need to go out and buy it? Will it last them a week? Will it last them a month? So then you start counting how many sheets are on each roll of paper, how many sheets do you use per wipe, Tony? I don't expect you to answer that question, and how many times you go to the toilet each day, and you can calculate that, but that all sounds way too complicated. So guess what? There's an app for that. You can actually download an app now that will tell you, based on a number of small parameters that you might input into the app, how long your hoarded toilet paper will last. And I haven't actually done the calculation for myself because I haven't actually been hoarding toilet paper, so it's almost useless going in and using that app. But if you're worried about how long your toilet paper hoard will last, go and download the app and it will tell you.
Yeah, I suppose the alternative is to go and buy a bidet. I bet you the sales have gone up with them.
There are lots of alternatives, Tony. I don't want to go in and explore all those alternatives.
No. I can see the Mathew hat's been put back on here now. Now,
That's right.
if you're worried about coronavirus, Siri can help you check your symptoms.
All of our digital assistants out there, you know, you've got the Amazon Alexa, you've got Hey Google, you've got Siri on your iPhone, obviously, and they can give you just simple answers to questions. You can say, what's the value of pi accurate to 3 decimal places, and it will give you the answer to that. And that's very easy for a digital assistant to look up and drag that information off the internet. But for things like the coronavirus, wondering whether or not you've got the coronavirus, should I go and get tested? Yes, people can go and access the internet and look at a range of different sites, but Apple has been clever enough to say you can just simply ask Siri, do I have the coronavirus? And Siri will present you with a series of questions. And if you answer those and you go through and give all those answers, at the end of that little mini questionnaire, Siri will tell you whether or not it's highly recommended that you go and be tested or not. And obviously don't take it as the only place you should look and the only information, but it gives you a pretty good guide answering a few basic questions as to whether you should rush down and get tested straight away, or it's probably okay and you should just keep exercising caution with your daily interaction. So again, this is where technology can be incredibly useful in a pandemic like we've got at the moment.
Yeah, that's just fantastic. And you've been listening to the great program that we've got on Binjang with Mathew Dickerson and Tech Talk. And stay tuned this afternoon because we'll have another program on. In the meantime, keep on listening to Binjang 91.5.